So this is a practice cast for low information Dota, which is I'm going to do a little bit of explaining of what teams are going for, what they sort of do, and just generally try to make Dota a more approachable spectator sport to watch if you don't really understand the game that well. Or, maybe you've played a couple games, but you're not that familiar with the higher levels of play, what all the heroes do, what maybe pro teams are approaching in ways that you don't see at the regular level, or maybe you want to get into Dota on a watching perspective, but you don't have the time to play it too much. So this is a game today being played right now between the teams Pulse and the GDB team, who are actually that's what they're called in the client, but they're actually named Zero. I'll sort of talk a little bit about the teams in just a second. And this is part of the RaidCall D2L League, which is a league run by the Evil Geniuses Association, so they're pretty important in the esports scene, and commentated primarily by AC and Draskell. I'll have them off for this just because I'm talking over it, but they're great. They're some of the best casters in the Dota 2 scene. So I'm going to go right into the picks and bans, and I'll talk about the teams a little later when there's sort of some downtime. So we've got Pulse on the Dire side and Zero on the Radiant side. And there are actually already 3 bans in, so as you can see, there's sort of a timeline right here in the middle of the screen. Pulse are currently banning their last ban, and they chose Darkseer. We'll talk about that in a second. And now we're in the pick phase, so now we'll have 1 pick for Zero, then 2 picks for Pulse, and then so on and so forth down into the further stages of the draft. So let's take a look at what they've banned. So ban means essentially we're playing the captain's mode, which is that each of the captains of the teams picks which heroes that they want to go into the battle. And the first part is that each team gets 2 bans. It used to be 3, now it's 2. To sort of say, we don't want to play against this hero. We don't want the other team to have a chance at getting him. We don't mind not getting him. We just sort of want this hero out of the picture completely. So let's look at what they've banned so far. So on Pulse's side, they banned Batrider and Darkseer. So these are 2 very different heroes. Batrider is a hero that very recently, in the last month or so, has made an enormous ascent. He got great buffs in the last 2 content patches, which sort of brought him from somebody that wasn't ever really picked into a very, very common first pick, first ban situation. And the strength of Batrider is that he just provides great crowd control. He's a very good player to put in the middle lane, and he's just very strong in general in a teamfight context too, because he disables one hero completely. It can also slow down the opposing team and do a lot of damage. Darkseer has been a perennial, very strong hero for about a year now. He was sort of discovered and then immediately made an enormous impact on the game. He's received several nerfs, so he's been reduced in power several times, and he's still one of the premier heroes in the game. He's used as a sort of supporting and buffing player, and he does a lot of crowd control as well, and damage. So we're actually into the pick phase. I'll skip past Zero's bans and just go to what they've picked. So Zero had the first pick in this game, and so you get 1, and then the opposing team gets 2, and then you get 2. What they chose to pick with their first pick is Templar Assassin. Templar Assassin is one of, if not the strongest middle hero in the metagame right now, rivaled only by, Batrider, who is banned. So they chose to pick up Templar Assassin for their mid, and then Chaos Knight and Leshrac. And Pulse so far has countered with Jakiro and Bounty Hunter. So let's talk quickly about Zero's lineup first. So Zero picked TA first. TA is a very strong mid. Her ultimate, which is sort of the premier ability of each hero, is traps that she can place around that are invisible and that slow the opposing team if they walk over them and she activates them. And then she deals an incredible amount of what's called burst damage. So she does a very large amount of damage in a very short amount of time with the combination of her Q, her first ability, Refraction, her second ability, Meld, and then it also has a little bit of range. So she's able to deal damage in a column, and she's able to deal an incredible amount of damage in one burst with the combination of Refraction, which buffs her damage and gives her damage absorption, and Meld, which gives her one big boost of damage and makes her invisible as long as she stands in place. So they've decided to have that in their middle lane. Templar Assassin is almost always run in the middle. And then they've added on Chaos Knight and Leshrac. These are also 2 heroes who have been very strong. They haven't really changed much in their position in the metagame. Chaos Knight is sort of an occasional pick. Leshrac has been an extremely frequent pick. He actually got a major nerf in the latest big patch to Dota, but he's still considered one of the top heroes. So these two heroes are very good in combination with each other, which may be why Zero decided to pick them both up at the same time. They took Chaos Knight on his Q. His first ability, Chaos Bolt, has a fairly good stun. It has a random duration, but as you level it up, the maximum time it can take goes longer and longer. So you can see on the screen, it goes from 1 to 2 seconds at rank 1, but at rank 3 it already can be as much as 4 seconds. And the reason this is so relevant with Leshrac is that Leshrak's first ability, Split Earth, is a very strong stun that does a lot of damage and stuns for a long time, for 2 seconds, but it has a long setup time. So you generally have to do a lot of prediction of how the enemy heroes are going to move in order to actually make sure that the Split Earth lands. But with Chaos Knight already providing a guaranteed stun that can last for as much as 4 seconds, suddenly setting up Leshrac's stun doesn't seem so difficult. And once you've got the stun from Chaos Knight, the stun from Leshrac, all the damage, the follow-on magic damage that Leshrac can provide, and the follow-on physical damage that Chaos Knight can provide, it's going to be very, very difficult to stand up against that combination. So what Zero are most likely looking to do, and this might evolve as the draft goes on, is pair this Chaos Knight with this Leshrac, possibly in a lane together or further on in the game, and get a lot of farm on the Chaos Knight, some farm on the TA. The Chaos Knight is frequently played as a semi-carry, so he's picks up a lot of the farm, picks up a lot of the gold that's going to be going around, and then use the Leshrac to support that, and sort of have a very strong mid-game composition. So from about 10 minutes in to about 30 minutes in, Zero are going to look to be getting a lot of kills all over the map. So let's look at Pulse and how they sort of reacted to that. So in response to the Templar Assassin, they picked up Jakiro and Bounty Hunter. Jakiro is a support hero. He doesn't typically pick up a lot of the farm that's going on, but he's very, very strong crowd control on his Ice Path ability, and he's a good pusher. He can get towers down fairly quickly with the aid of Liquid Fire and his wave clearing ability, Dual Breath, and he's just very strong support in general all around. He was recently buffed, actually, so he went from sort of a joke hero that nobody would ever take to one of the strongest heroes. Bounty Hunter is a hero that's very critical in the current metagame. We'll maybe talk more about him a little later since we're getting on in the draft. But essentially, he's a roaming ganker. He's able to kill heroes fairly quickly, sort of like Templar Assassin is. He is invisible with his Shadow Walk ability. He can wander around in stealth and sort of get kills. And he is a gold booster, so his ultimate track lets a team get far more gold for each kill that they get compared to the other team. And thus they can sort of compound their advantage as they fight on and get more kills. Even if they're sort of trading kills with the enemy, they still make it out ahead because they're getting more gold from Bounty Hunter. And finally, they picked up Queen of Pain. Queen of Pain is probably going to be their answer to the Templar Assassin mid. Queen of Pain is a strong mid character who's always sort of moderately popular in the metagame. Her Q, in theory, can counter Templar Assassin's Refraction, which blocks damage instances, but at this level, most players will use Meld to fully dodge the damage of that. But nonetheless, Queen of Pain has great range, so the idea is that if she stays mid, she can sort of zone out the Templar Assassin and not take too much damage from her, because Templar Assassin is a short-range character. Bounty Hunter, at the professional level, is typically played solo, so he will go in a lane by himself. The reason this works is that he can stay invisible and not take too much damage while still getting experience. He can maybe get a last hit here and there, but mostly he's just going to sit around and be invisible and still work out while making the other team nervous, where is he, or whatnot. He can afford to have a slow start in terms of how much gold he gets because, as I said, the track ultimate lets him make it up later. So now we're into the second pick phase after the initial bans. So it's going to be 0, Pulse, 0, Pulse. Zero's picked up Windrunner. Windrunner is a very standard, very good support hero. She has a great crowd control in the form of her Shackle Shot. She does pretty good damage in Power Shot, and she can sort of get away very easily with Windrun. She's also frequently run as a solo laner because she's able to plink away from long range with her Power Shot and sort of be very difficult to kill because of her evasive Windrun. So Pulse has done something interesting. With their fourth pick, they took Tiny. So Tiny is a hero that waxes and wanes in popularity in the metagame, and he can be played in a number of different ways. The standard way to play Tiny before certain innovations that came around was to sort of just aim to do a lot of magic damage in a short time, play him as a sort of initiator, guy who sets up fights, but maybe isn't the linchpin of your team. He just sort of generates a compounding advantage for you in the form of his magic damage from his avalanche and toss. But recently, Tiny has been sort of moving into a hard carry role. So a hard carry is someone that becomes very close to unstoppable as they gain more and more and more gold as the game progresses. So the aim with the Tiny may be to play him as a hard carry and sort of get items like Aghanim's Scepter, which gives him a giant tree club that he can walk around and whack people with, and then Mantis Style, which lets him generate illusions of himself to do more and more damage and sort of become an unstoppable pushing and fighting force. A very, very, very farmed, so a Tiny that's been able to accumulate a lot of gold is nearly unstoppable and has sort of led to some pretty crazy games and comebacks in various tournament contexts. So that may be what Zero is going for here. What Pulse is going for here. So with their last pick, Zero picked Rubik. So Rubik is a very interesting hero because his ultimate allows him to steal spells of the enemy. So he can steal the last spell that the enemy team cast. Oh, wow, and we'll talk about the Axe in a moment, but Pulse has picked up Axe, which is an incredibly uncommon pick. So I personally haven't seen an Axe at the professional level in maybe a couple months. It's happened. Obviously I don't watch every pro game. But Axe is very, very uncommon, sometimes picked as sort of a joke or troll pick. Obviously they're not trolling here, this is a tournament context. But Axe is an extremely interesting hero. They may be looking to put him in the jungle. Axe is a perfectly acceptable jungler. They may put him on a lane. We'll sort of talk about the lanes in just a moment. And so Zero has decided to go with Rubik. One of the advantages of Rubik is that he can steal things like Track, which nullifies the gold advantage that the other team may have, so long as you then use the stolen Track for your own team. Rubik is also pretty commonly played as a mid, although the more fashionable thing lately has been to put him on a side lane support role. So most likely they're going to run the Templar Assassin mid. As I said before, she's maybe the strongest mid out there right now, but definitely one of the strongest. They actually have the option of running either the Windrunner or the Leshrac or even the Rubik as a solo lane. So they would put that top. The Radiant solo lane is typically this lane. It's a little more dangerous, so it's not as good to put your main farming up here. You can, and many teams do, but the safe lane down here, where you sort of have the 2-tower coverage and all of the friendly jungle here, is typically where you would put your carry player. So we're probably going to see Templar Assassin in the mid. We're going to see one of their heroes off lane, so up here, and then we're going to see a tri-lane bot. So a tri-lane is just 3 heroes in a lane, and we're definitely going to see the Leshrac in that tri-lane with the Chaos Knight for the reasons I said before, the combination of Chaos Bolt and Split Earth. We're going to see, so it looks like Windrunner solo. So, alright, and now on Pulse side, we've got Wagamama is pretty commonly, he's the captain of Team Pulse. He pretty commonly plays finesse heroes like that Bounty Hunter. We're going to have the Queen of Pain mid, and then so with Wagamama solo lane, we'd be most likely seeing the Jakiro, the Tiny Plate as a hard carry, and the Axe in the jungle. So we've got the 5 people here. I'm going to turn off spectator chat. We've got all 5 of Pulse hanging out in their jungle. Essentially, the reason why you might start with 5 is if the other team sends 5 people up into here to try to kill your top lane early, you can sort of counteract that by sending all 5 of your team into the jungle and taking them. It would actually be pretty iffy. I think the 5 heroes of Zero would be favored to win a 5-on-5 engagement at level 1 against the 5 heroes of Pulse. But, it's certainly better to have that full engagement rather than just get picked off 5 versus 2. So you can see Pulse has set up a fairly defensive ward perimeter. You've got the overlooking the top rune spot here on the river, and you've got one ward here. This is a fairly recent fashion, putting it in this sort of area. The idea here is that you can still see what the enemy top laner is doing, even if the creep balance is back here over here. You can additionally sort of just watch this cross area here. So it's a very good word spot. I think a lot of the Chinese teams have been doing this lately, and it certainly makes sense. It's a good spot. So You can see, so this is the stun ability that Jakiro casts. He's already done quite a bit of damage to Bambo over here. Bambo's playing the Windrunner off lane, so they've chosen to put the Windrunner solo. That's probably the best choice. She's the strongest against this composition of the 3 off lane choices that they had. And essentially what that means is that we've got the Rubik playing support, we've got the Leshrac playing support, and we've got Chaos Knight acting as their carry player. And here we have Wagamama. As I said, Bounty Hunter is very frequently played offlane, and that's exactly what he's doing here. What he's trying to do is sort of, be a pest as Leshrac tries to manage this creep area and sort of stack this camp, cause more than one set of monsters to spawn here, pull the oncoming creep wave for the Radiant into the path of this. All that sort of tricks that the support player in a lane typically does, and Wagamama aims to sort of make that a pain in the ass for him to do, while also trying to get as much farm as possible. You can see he's not just sitting in stealth, he's also out there trying to get some farm, because in a 1v1 situation he's not that much in danger. And he picked up the poor man's shield in order to live more easily, not take quite as much damage from creeps and from melee. And so here we have Chaos Knight, looks like he's getting pretty good farm already. 8 last hits in the first 2 minutes, that's not bad. The gold per minute graph Tiny is actually doing quite well. So the Tiny Jakiro lane is very, very oppressive for the Windrunner. She can get away, but this very strong ice path stun that Jakiro has makes the situation extremely dangerous for her, since Tiny can follow that up with Avalanche and Toss, which are high magic damage abilities. And the fact that Windrunner can dodge all the melee attacks in a particular time isn't going to save her when she's being stunned and cast a lot of magic damage on. So in that respect, it's going to be a difficult lane for Bambo, but he's an extremely experienced player. I wouldn't be surprised if he does fine anyway. We've got about tied farm on Black, who's the Zero's carry player, and Regen, who's Pulse's carry player. So, not a lot of advantage either way so far. And as I sort of thought, Axe is going to be playing the jungle. So let's talk about Axe's ability set a little bit. Axe is a surprising pick. He's not in the standard metagame. However, Pulse is a team that very frequently does non-standard compositions. Before the 6.76 patch to Dota, they pioneered some very non-traditional compositions revolving around Treant Protector, as well as Wisp, that were just incredibly fun to watch. They were very, very effective. They won them a lot of games in the Star Ladder Season 3. And, they're just people that, they're guys that really like non-standard compositions and sort of out-strategizing their opponents in that respect. So Axe is playing in the jungle. The reason you would want to put someone in the jungle essentially is that they can still get close to a full player's worth of gold and experience, while also freeing up more space for your carry or what have you. So one thing that Zero's done that's interesting that I haven't commented on yet is they're actually doing a 2-2-1 with one player in the off lane, rather than do the tri-lane as I had surmised they might with the Leshrac Rubik Chaos Knight combo. They've actually opted to put the Rubik as a full-time middle support. The idea with this is, as I sort of mentioned, Queen of Pain is not that unfavored against Templar Assassin. She can't kill Templar Assassin, but she can survive because she has a blink on her W, which lets her get out of combat very easily, so Templar Assassin can't chase her quite as well. She's got that damage over time. If Templar Assassin doesn't have her meld disappearing trick, then that can do a lot of damage to her. And she has the Scream of Pain to clear waves easily. So Queen of Pain doesn't really have that much of a problem playing against Templar Assassin in the mid, but as you can see, she's down 12 last hits. She only has 14 hits versus 26 for the TA. And part of the reason that is because this Rubik is managing the middle lane. This is fairly uncommon to see a person doing full-time mid support, but I think in this game it was actually a really good decision. As you can see, he's pulling the monsters from the Radiant middle lane into these two jungle camps. So there's a spawn here of fairly weak monsters, and there's a spawn here of fairly strong monsters. And he's pulling into them. What that does is it essentially moves the equilibrium of the creeps back towards... Oh my god, I missed First Blood. So that's my fault. What essentially happened there is exactly what I said at the beginning we would watch out for, is they dove, so they went way, way up into where the tower is, and they set up that double stun with the Chaos Knight hitting Chaos Bolt, the Leshrac hitting Split Earth, and just following on from that. So you can see, even though they took a ton of damage from the tower that's no longer there because they pushed it in, they were able to kill the Bounty Hunter handily. And he couldn't escape with invisibility because they've got this ward here. So they put the Sentry Ward down, which reveals invisibility, to make sure that he couldn't simply escape after the 2 stuns from Black and Alex landed. So very good play, obviously, from Zero. I apologize for missing that. And essentially, the spoils of that were not only that they killed the bounty hunter, but they also got the tower. So that's going to give them quite a convincing... Looks like they're going for it again. So they've stunned. They're going to do the second stun. And he may escape. He's going to escape. So what happened there, essentially, is Leshrac casts his W, his Diabolic Edict, which does damage to I think a pseudo-random unit within a certain range of him. And because there were a lot of dire creeps, most of the damage of the Diabolic Edict was absorbed by the creeps rather than by Bounty Hunter. So Bounty Hunter was smart, actually not attempting to run away until some of the Diabolic Edict damage was dissipated. Thus, he didn't actually take that much damage from that, and therefore, he didn't die. Black wasn't able to press the issue because his health was very low, and in fact, he's walking back now. So, let's take a look. Mid is still basically the same way. Actually, where is Kurokai? Oh, Kurokai's there. So the other good thing about the Rubik, in addition to doing the support and pulling these mobs over here, is that he raises the danger level for Queen of Pain considerably. Oh, interesting. We actually have Wagamama's begun to roam. So he feels now he's level 5. He is free to sort of roam and do additional damage. However, he got punished a little bit there for doing it. He's able to wander around the map. He's invisible now. Nobody really knows where he is. He can sort of pick a good time and oppress Templar Assassin and sort of shift this equilibrium back towards them. So Rubik is a very good hero, not just because of his spell-stealing ability, but also because of his primary abilities, Telekinesis and Fate Bolt. Telekinesis lifts an opponent for almost 2.5 seconds at max rank, and oh wow, this might be a kill. So Wagamama's dead. Yeah, so again, they were able to use setup stuns, in this case the Rubik stun, to give them space to cast Split Earth, and then follow that up with damage from the Templar Assassin, which is essentially unlivable, and for Wagamama's case, not even escapable, because they did a clever little body block here, in addition to using the Sentry Ward. So great play, obviously. Here you can see the Templar Assassin traps that I talked about earlier. And there you could sort of see that ability of Rubik to compound danger focused, because Fade Bolt is an ability that does a great amount of damage. It's sort of an AoE bouncing lightning bolt spell that additionally reduces the damage of the person that it hits. That does good damage, and Telekinesis gives you CC that's dependable. It lets you control a player, and that obviously is good too. So Smogolig is in a lot of trouble here. That was excellent. So what you can see there is there was a sort of flash of light coming from the Chaos Knight. That was him using his Reality Rift ability, which teleports him and his target to the same location. So that would have been the end of Queen of Pain there. She would have been dead. She was slowed from the Templar Assassin. She was taking a lot of damage. But she was able to blink just in time up this area that it stuffed the Chaos Knight Reality Rift. But now we can see that Kurokai just got a double kill top. So what he's doing is he's sort of taking a roaming support role, which is oppressing Pulse completely. They have so much crowd control on this. You might have noticed that I highlighted that every single hero on their team is crowd control. Templar Assassin has a slow. Leshrac has a stun. Windrunner has a great stun. Rubik has a stun. Chaos Knight has a stun. It's very difficult, especially early, for Pulse to escape sort of the compounding effect of the stuns that they can bring to bear. So there they were able to kill both Jakiro and Tiny. Tiny, however, has his revenge. He's able to combo down with his 2 high magic damage abilities on Rubik. So essentially, this is Zero's game plan, right? So they have a very Genki composition. They're very strong in their ability to CC, and they have sort of dominant mid-game damage from the Chaos Knight and the Templar Assassin, who peak relatively early as far as carries go. And Pulse's approach is sort of, well, we have an intrinsic advantage generated by having the Axe in the jungle, having the hardest carry on the board in the form of Tiny, and he's definitely going the carry build, so he has Phase Boots. The Phase Boots is essentially a signal that you are going to go carry Tiny. It gives him a lot of speed and the ability to catch, but the downside is you don't go Arcane Boots, which is the more traditional ganker Tiny, initiator Tiny build. So you cast way fewer of your spells. Tiny's mana pool is very scrawny. As you can see, his max mana right now is only 481, and both of his abilities cost 120. So you're not going to get a ton of casts out of that with Phase Boots. You will with Arcane Boots. But the flip side is Phase Boots buffs his damage, it buffs his movement speed, and as a Tiny who's actually going to focus most on his melee potential late in the game, that's more of the sort of boot solution that you want. And he's going Drums, which is another popular Tiny as a carry build. He's in a lot of danger right now. So once again, they've sent this 3-stack team to fight Tiny. He was able to live with his magic wand, and now Wagamama actually tries to clean up in the back, does manage to kill Leshrac, but in actuality, it was sort of a curse in disguise, because Wagamama deciding to attack Leshrac killed Leshrac, but it also made Tiny more confident that he could come back. That was not good. You don't generally want your carry dying twice as he's died now in the early game. He should probably not have come back. What he should have done was retreated back towards his tower rather than coming back in. But what he thought was, okay, we can pick up Rubik. He's very low. At the very least, we can pick up Leshrac, and then Windrunner's not going to beat us 1v2. Fortunately, what actually happened is that Wagamama died, and they're about to lose this tower because nobody's minding the shop. Oh, he actually denies it, so that's really good. Denying robs the other team. Well, not robs them, obviously, but it means the other team gets far less gold than they would otherwise. Rather than getting about 1,000, maybe a little more, they only get 120, about 600. So, 500 gold not swing is very good. However, the fact that they're down 7-2 is obviously not great, and they're down 2 towers. So they're losing map control, essentially. The problem with getting towers down, especially against a ganky mobile team, is that now you don't have this vision, and people can freely run these routes without you being able to sort of supervise that and stop their progress with the tower. So down here we lose Tiny again. We lose Queen of Pain. Essentially, Zero's strategy is paying off in spades right now. Pulse is not able to stand up against the amount of CC that they can generate on a dime. They were almost able to kill Black there, but he escapes. He finishes his armlet. He has his power treads. That's almost certainly more than Tiny's got. Yeah, Tiny's got Drums, which is pretty good. He's already used 2 charges on it. He's got Phase Boots. He's got Magic Wand. But you can see there's just an enormous disparity between the top gold earners on the Radiant on Zero and the top gold earners on Pulse on the Dire. So Chaos Knight's already up to about 400 gold per minute, which is great for this stage in the game. Let's take a look at their net worth. TA and Chaos Knight are about 5k. Even their solo laner, their number 3, Bambo, is still above Region, the number 1 on the Pulse team. So Pulse definitely has an uphill climb. This tower is in incredible danger from the 4 heroes that are assembled here. They probably actually can't defend this. They don't have a glyph of fortification that prevents it from taking damage. Smogolig is going to see if he can deny it. He can't, obviously. He even gets slowed for his trouble. They probably can't catch him, I don't think. They was just trying to steal his blink successfully. So Kurokai, you can see, is sort of online with his ultimate now. He's level 8. He has the blink stolen, which is great. It's a little high cooldown because Queen of Pain only leveled it to about level 1 so far. Very typical for Queen of Pain, by the way. But still, it's a blink. It lets him set up things like what he did just now. Queen of Pain is essentially dead right now in the water. And what happened there is exactly that. He blinks in, he uses the setup stun Telekinesis to make sure that Templar Assassin gets in, to make sure that Leshrac lands his Q, and then the Queen of Pain can't blink out. She can't blink because she's completely CC'd from 100% to 0%. We can see that sort of great damage from Templar Assassin. She has her Phase Boots, she has blink, and that's all she really needs. They've got so much mobility with the two blinks on Rubik and on Templar Assassin that Leshrac is always going to land his stun, and he's always going to be able to follow it up with a ton of magic damage. So Wagamama ports in, dies immediately. Now, we've got Axe sort of pulling this creep wave. Axe is very able to kill a creep wave very easily because of his counter helix, which counterattacks mobs that are attacking him. And they are able to actually get the tower as well, and Kurokai will probably die. Will he die? So Kurokai actually manages to bring down Leshrac before he dies. So even though he teleported into a 1 vs 3 situation, he was able to kill Jakiro, and they may lose more people for their trouble. We've got Black coming in now. Axe is almost certainly dead. He dies from the power shot from Bambo. This looks really, really bad for Pulse, essentially. And what happened is essentially what I said before. what I said was to look out for around 10 to 30 minutes, Zero establishing a sort of mid-game dominance with their ganker combination. And that's exactly what they're doing. Chaos Knight is already very, very farmed. He has Armlet, which drains your strength but gives you a ton of damage armor, attack speed, strength. So it drains your health, but it still does a ton of effect. And it works very, very well with his ultimate, Phantasm, which summons spectral clones of himself. If you activate the Armlet prior to using the Phantasm ultimate, then all of your clones will receive the Armlet effect. So essentially it compounds Chaos Knight's power tremendously, because the clones don't get the health drain. You get the health drain. If you want, you can summon the clones. Sorry, you can pop Armlet, summon the clones, turn off Armlet, and that's what a lot of Chaos Knights do. And so Armlet's just a great item on Chaos Knight compared to many other heroes, but it's pretty common on a lot of strength carries and sort of strength brawler characters. But you can see his net worth just continues to climb. He has 6360. I'm not exactly sure what he's building next. Let's take a look. Well, he hasn't really embarked on anything yet, but a lot of stuff's common on Chaos Knight. Manta Style will generate more illusions, which are good. They sort of get a good amount of his stats, and they sort of increase the power of Chaos Knight. His Reality Rift actually moves all of his illusions in addition to himself. So if you have a ton of illusions, you can actually fully block a player in. And you can see Zero wants to stick together. Pulse wants to split up and make sure that Spolgale gets a decent amount of farm, Tiny gets a great amount of farm, Region on Tiny, Axe gets a good amount of farm. He has his Blink now, so he can sort of do the counter initiation. That is what they'll sort of desperately need against these stun combos. But as of now, they're getting pushed in. So they lost 4 towers already. They've lost both towers top, they've lost 1 tower mid, and they've lost 1 tower bot. In response, Pulse only has this 1 bot tower to show for it. So they're going to be completely zoned into their side of the map right now, and it's going to be very, very difficult for them to generate the space that Region needs to farm. You can see he's sort of in no man's land here. He could very easily lose to Chaos Knight right here. Looks pretty dangerous. Yep, he's gone. So you can see Chaos Knight is sort of taking a commanding position over the opposing carry here. He's level 12 to Regions 11. He's 3-1 to Regions 2 and 4, and he's just vastly better abilities. He just bought his full drums, which is also excellent on Chaos Knight. It gives an aura ability. Any hero with illusions is going to benefit from an aura because the aura applies to the illusions. Meanwhile, Tiny, he has his point booster, so he's on the way to Aghanim Scepter, which, like I said, gives him a big tree club that improves his effectiveness dramatically. So Mini here tries to come in, tries to initiate, and he's just unable to. There's too much damage and too many stuns for this stage Pulse to work. But they are able to do a ton of damage to Leshrac via Queen of Pain's pure damage output and Bounty Hunter's burst damage output. They might actually get Leshrac here. Yes, they do. However, probably going to cost them Axe. And Setup Stun, Templar Assassin. Stuns are just great to work with Templar Assassin because she can slow people as a follow-up to the stun, and she does a ton of damage. And she has a double damage rune, so that doubles her base damage. She's doing about 200, 300 damage with Refraction, and then 500 damage in one shot with Meld. She's stunned. She actually will go down. That was great play from Pulse there to set up with the Jakira stun, the W. Kurokai goes down as well. They are able to stun Region, but they won't lose Bambo. He manages to Force Staff away. So Force Staff, very strong item. Recently nerfed, still amazing. Just pushes you in a direction. And in a game where positioning is as important as it is in Dota, pushing in a direction is going to be amazing. So Pulse were actually able to, craft a little Silk Purse out of Salzir there. They were able to get Templar Assassin down. Once TA is down, and if Chaos Knight isn't in the picture, and which he wasn't, Black was down here, they really don't have that much damage. The Shrac's damage is sort of, if there's stuff around to absorb the Diabolic Edict, he's not really high level enough to benefit from his ultimate Pulse Nova that much yet, and he's very squishy. Windrunner, unless she gets carry items, which she's not, she's going sort of a supporty build with the Tranquil Boots, the Force Staff, she's, not going to do a ton of damage either, and Rubik does almost no damage outside of his Fate Bolt, unless he steals a very powerful spell or something. So, even though they were not able to effectively initiate with the Blink Axe there, Pulse did pretty well. They may, however, lose this tower. Actually, they might back out. No, they will definitely lose this tower. So they actually managed to put the last hit for that tower on Templar Assassin, which is fantastic. She blinks in to get it because, it gives that extra gold. And you really want the gold on your TA. You don't want it on these 3 guys. They're very effective even without too much farm. Meanwhile, we've got Region is still, not getting that great farm. He is actually above Windrunner now, which is good, but he's still quite a bit trailing Chaos Knight quite a bit, which is not great. Let's look at the overall game picture. Yeah, and that's basically what I'm saying. So in addition to the 15-7 and the 4-tower lead that Zero has, they're now up by about 10k gold. So that's like 2 big items worth of gold. And that's quite a bit of an advantage. Now, that's one that Pulse could make up by leveraging the Bounty Hunter, but the window on that's closing fast, and Zero are playing incredibly smart. They're playing in a super tight clump, so as to limit the effectiveness of the Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter is amazing when he can sort of catch you all alone and just prey on you there, because how are you going to fight him 1v1? But Bounty Hunter can't go in on 4 guys that have tons of stuns, and Jakiro certainly can't go in on people doing Roshan. I think he was actually pushed down with Windrunner's Force Staff and then killed by the team. So, essentially an uncontested Roshan there. Roshan drops the Aegis of the Immortal, which they've put on Templar Assassin. This is a 1-up. If you die with this on and it lasts for about 6 minutes, 5 seconds later you get full health, full mana, and you're back up. So Templar Assassin does a ton of damage, and as I mentioned a couple minutes earlier, Pulse's game plan in a fight is going to be to take out the Templar Assassin because she's the primary source of damage for Zero. But if she's going to come right back to life, how really can you win a team fight, right? And she's now got her BKB as well, finished the full BKB, which is fantastic, lifted her net worth to about 8,500. BKB gives you magic immunity, which means that Tiny's stun is not going to hit you. Tiny's toss is not going to toss you away. Jakiro's W is not going to hit you. Jakiro's R, which is the damage over time column of flame, is not going to hurt you. And, just a lot of the damage. And Queen of Pain, which is almost a all magic damage dealer with her ultimate Sonic Wave and her Screen of Pain, none of that is going to affect Templar Assassin. So you can see that Pulse, even when they're pushing a fairly low health tower, they have to run like the Dickens whenever Zero threatens to do anything. They might actually get caught out. Perhaps not. Fishbone manages to get out. Bounty Hunter is obviously stealthed. Rubik is tracked. He has Jakiro's Ice Path, which is just excellent. He can definitely add to the compounding CC advantage that Zero have with that. And I don't know, I don't think this axe has been actually a very effective pick for them. I love to see unconventional heroes. Those are the games I love to watch all the time, but I don't think Pulse has really managed to leverage the axe in a way that's made it effective for them. It's mostly just in that all of Pulse's ability to control a fight is sort of outclassed by even half of Zero's ability to control a fight. And Axe doesn't have any hard crowd control. He doesn't have any stuns. He doesn't even really have any silences. What he does have is this Q, which is Berserker's Call, which taunts heroes. So during the time that they're affected by Berserker's Call, in a very short radius, so 275 around Axe, they have to attack him. So that's good. Axe has high armor. He's very tanky. Actually, Berserker's Call also raises his armor. Oh, let's take a look at this fight. So Region's in a lot of trouble here. He might actually be okay. It looks like he's going to dodge all the CC. Nope. He is going to get killed. Very clever play here, but not quite. He tried to go into the trees in a sort of secret spot and teleport out because they wasted all their stuns and he could get out, but the 1.5 seconds to channel the teleport wasn't quite enough to prevent him from just dying to Power Shot. So clever play from Region, but is it enough? Probably not. He's 4 and 5. His net worth is only about 7,000. It's really sort of starting to lag. It even lags behind Smogolig, who's the Queen of Pain. He has 2 Oblivion Staffs. What he's doing is making Orchid Malevolence. He's actually done. Orchid Malevolence will let him silence one of Zero's players. That's smart. That's a smart play. You really want to break up... It looks like Jakiro just died somewhere in the outfield. That's my fault for missing that. But you really want to break up this sort of CC chain that they can put on you by silencing one of them and sort of taking them out of the ability to chain stun and just chain destroy your carries. If anything, Tiny might really want some sort of BKB or something, or some of their players might want BKBs to sort of live through this CC chain. But instead he sort of has his point booster for the eventual Aghanim Scepter to make him strong and big with the Tree Club. He's got his Yasha to speed him up. This is part of Manta Style, which he'll also be getting to sort of split himself up. But I just don't know if they're going to make it that far. A little more speed and a little more health and a little more mana, none of that is really going to impact this mid-game control, this vice grip that Zero has on this game right now. And Black, meanwhile, is working on his BKB, and that'll make him pretty, not unstoppable, but very, very good. He actually is Invis. He might decide to go on this Queen Pin, I'm not sure. Yes, he does. So oh my goodness. Almost kills Smogolig in 3 shots. Chaos Knight has a crit effect. He has a critical damage effect on his Chaos Strike, which gives him 300% damage. What he did there, he's actually done with his BKB. He popped Armlet. He did Chaos Bolt to stun Queen of Pain. He did Reality Rift to get in there. Luckily, it wasn't a full 4-second stun, because she would have certainly have died in the 4 seconds. but he was able to do a ton of damage just by getting a couple lucky Chaos Strike procs. So here comes Axe. He does use the Berserker's Call. Doesn't really do that much. He is just not able to live. He doesn't have the survivability. They do get Templar Assassin down. Like I said, they were always going to focus her, and that's exactly what they're doing. Wagamama's going to die in the backfield. Actually, he's going to live. We've got the Macropyre down. It's doing quite a bit of damage to 0, but they're also chasing back. Just the Chaos Knight Illusions are enough to intimidate a team, but they're low. So they might be able to get some kills here. Are they? Yes, they do get Windrunner, and Alex is very low as well, but they won't be able to catch him. Black is actually quite low, but, you know, they can't really chase. They just can't. They don't have that blink on that tiny. That's the initiator tiny play that sometimes is done. Templar Assassin actually wants blood, but I'm not sure that's a great idea. Well, actually, with the BKB, she pops BKB. She does a huge meld hit. They're able to get Bounty Hunter. Kurkai's back to having Blink. Blink is just, I think, the best spell he can actually steal in this game overall, because it gives him that mobility to set up those CCs. So that was brilliant by Zero, turning that red around. They were sort of in disarray, running away with low health, and they're like, huh. We have the Templar Assassin BKB. We have all these blinks. Kurkai currently chasing Smolgalig with the blinks. Why don't we just turn red around, kill Wagamama, and see what else we could do? They almost killed Regen off it, too. So they're actually going to smoke up. So smoke stealths your team until you get within a certain radius of opposing heroes. So essentially that let them get the drop on Bambo, but he's able to run away with that wind run ability that I mentioned earlier. So that smoke, not terribly successful. They were anticipating that nobody would be in this area to de-stealth them. They wanted to get deep into enemy territory, get a couple pickoffs here or something. But instead, since Bambo was right here, he was sort of served as the canary in the coal mine. He was an early warning system that, hey, these guys are trying to push down and smoke, so they're still going to try to do it. They're going to try to bait with Regen, hope that somebody goes on him, and then stun them with the 2 invisible heroes. But none of that's going to work. It was a clever thought, but he's going to get shackle-shotted. He's going to get stunned. Jakira's able to bail him out. Minnie's able to jump in. This is what they've been looking for. This is exactly what Pulse have wanted this entire time. They want to taunt with the axe, so making sure that the enemy heroes can't move. Oh, but they're going to turn this right around with the Templar Assassin BKB. Perhaps. So Black's in the mix. He definitely wants to play. He's got his BKB on. Templar Assassin's BKB has actually expired. I heard a Queen of Pain ult somewhere, but I don't think it did very much. I think she actually may have missed completely. She manages to kill a Templar Assassin with a very, very clever blink combo. But Regen dies. So they lose 2. Zero loses 3. You could call it a win if you want. Actually, it might not even be over. Oh, great Orchid. So there's that Orchid. The Orchid of Malevolence is the item that silences... Oh, she's going to die, though. Yep. So Orchid of Malevolence to silence the Leshrac. Leshrac is based all on his spells, so he can't do anything once silenced. Pop your Q, pop your Shadow Strike to slow him, pop your Scream Pain to do some more damage, and then just melee him down. However, you're low health. To get out, you have to travel in this general region. You have to go up here. And Chaos Knight's sitting right here. So he just picks you off right there with a 3-second stun. And you can see that there's a gem on the ground, now on their courier. That gem was on Leshrac. The Gem of True Sight is an item that you use to sort of permanently reveal invisible heroes. That's a counter item to Wagamama. It drops when you die and can be destroyed or picked up by the opposing team. So Queen of Pain, if she had a little more presence of mind, could have picked it up, but she would have died immediately anyway, so it hardly mattered. Nonetheless, now it's on the courier, so Zero manages to keep their Gem of True Sight and avoid it just being destroyed. You can't immediately rebuy it when it's destroyed, so that would have been a minor setback for them, not being able to see Wagamama. But Wagamama's farm is not really up to snuff either. He's at 5736 net worth, making him the 4th on his team. Probably always going to happen in terms of him being the 4th, just because Axe is able to farm in the jungle, but with just Poor Man's Shield, Power Treads, Ring of Aquila, which is not even really a factor, and starting his BKB with that Ogre Club, it's going to be a while before Wagamama is really a particular threat to this game. They were definitely counting on his ability to sort of chew up your Rubiks and your Leshracs of the world, but they have enough health now that that's going to be a much tougher task for him. They're actually picking up health items, so Rubik has the Vitality Booster, Leshrac has the Point Booster. They're not even immediately going those items out of that. They're not immediately going the Soul Booster, or they're not immediately going the Aghanim Scepter in the case of Leshrac. They're just getting those items to give them more survivability that it's going to be very difficult to get bursted down by a Queen of Pain or a Bounty Hunter or these roaming gankers. So at long last, let me talk about Axe and what the combo he generates is. He taunts. The idea is that he taunts. That's sort of a 3-second immobilization for certain heroes. And then Jakiro can pile his stun and his Macropyre on top of that. Macropyre is an ability that does a ton of damage, but it does it in a column that's easily avoided. But it's not so easily avoided if the other team is stunned by Tiny Stun or it's taunted by Berserker's Call. So that was sort of the idea. Get them low, use the Battle Hunger to put a damage over time effect on Templar Assassin, and then pick them off with Culling Blade as they get low. So Axe's ultimate kills a low health unit. But it hasn't worked out. They weren't able to get in control of the game with the Bounty Hunter and their early damage, and consequently now they're going to lose their middle Raxes. So the Raxes, when destroyed, cause your creeps in that lane to be much more powerful. And so Zero's ability to capture a Rax, especially at this early time in the game, only 30 minutes in, is going to be very, very add to their dominance level. Kurikai might get picked off here. He's been silenced. He's been silenced after his spells, which is ideally worse than before, but they've got the Macropyre down. They're doing quite a lot of damage, but Black doesn't even care at this point. Zero are losing heroes. They are getting picked off by this Pulse combo, but Black's ability to just sort of not give a shit and just sort of chase Fishbone and chase Smoke Lake all over the map is making it difficult for Pulse to find the favorable trade. But they are able to pick off Black. He stayed in a bit too long. He was a bit too optimistic. Templar Assassin will get out no problem because she has the blink and she has the BKB and lots of defensive measures. But actually, they did lose their Raxus, so there's no way that you can argue that Pulse got the favorable end of that bargain. But getting 4 heroes down is pretty good, and now that gives them a little bit of breathing room to capture this Roshan. So Roshan respawns every 10 minutes. They sort of calculated. I mean, every pro team is going to be like, we know exactly when Roshan is going to come back up. And so now they're able to, with Black out of the picture for 48 seconds, he can buy back, but he's not likely to. They no longer fear the most farmed person on the map, and they can sort of use all 5 of them to kill this Roshan. So that gives Pulse some breathing room. The losing Rax is a very, very big problem. That means that the point of creep equilibrium is always going to tend towards you. They obviously put it on the Tiny. Tiny has his Aghanim Scepter done. You can see he's got the little club. So what the club essentially does is it makes his basic attack area of effect, so he does sort of a cleaving damage. It also makes him do a ton of damage to buildings. So even though they're still down 3 towers here, they can kill those towers in no time flat as long as they have the space to do it. You can see Tiny just smacks for a ton of damage with it. His ultimate Grow makes him bigger and bigger as the game goes on, and what the effect of that is he moves faster. I think out of the theory there's like a rolling stone or something. He attacks slower, but the attacks that he does do a ton more damage. So the carry Tiny build revolves around essentially maximizing the potential of that insane auto attack. So what you do is you get attack speed, which comes in the form of Manta Style, which he's going to build into next, and Assault Cuirass, which is probably what he'll make after that. So that sort of counteracts the attack speed deficiency that he gets from his ultimate. He maximizes the damage he does with it with Aghanim Scepter, and again with Manta Style. And that sort of makes him an unstoppable force as the game goes on. So if they're able to extend this game another 15-20 minutes, I think Pulse can sort of tip the scales back in their favor by harnessing the power of this Tiny. But the time in which this Zero CC Storm is dominant is still ongoing. And they're being very smart. You can see they always travel in a pack. It's very, very difficult to get the pick-offs with Bounty Hunter. In fact, they've essentially neutralized the performance of this Bounty Hunter. He's 3-5. That's very, very atypical for a Bounty Hunter who's a very dominant mid-game ganker to only be 3-5. You expect Fishbone to be 1-6 or what have you. It is unfortunate that he's level 10 when the opposing supports are 14 and 13. But, 1-6 is a fine record for a Jakiro. You're not going to expect him to get tons of kills. But Bounty Hunter is a different story. He's burst damage. His job is to get kills. And if he's not, that puts you at a major disadvantage. That's why you see an over 10,000 gold advantage at peak for Zero. Now that's dissipated a bit. Tiny's been able to get some farm, and they lost that team fight and the Roshan, so Roshan gives a fairly sizable gold bounty to the opposing to the team that gets him as well. So Pulse have worked it down to about 7,500, and I think sort of intuitively as you watch the game, you can see that they've staunched the bleeding a little bit, right? So Zero aren't playing that non-stop aggression that they maybe were 10 minutes ago when they were in utter dominance of the field. And Pulse are, traveling as a group right now. You can see them smoking up as well, going to try to get a pick-off here. Not sure this is actually that great of an idea, but they're certainly going to try. So you can see the Berserker's Call was popped. You've got the stun. You've he was going to macro pyre follow up. He decided wisely not to, but now Mini's going down. So Axe is completely taken out of the game by that Chaos Knight army. So all those illusions. He's got the mana style. Queen of Pain pops her BKB. We got a buyback Bounty Hunter. We've lost 3 on 0, but Black is just unstoppable. Black just takes out Region no problem there, and Fishbone is going to get out, actually. He is going to get out. But Wagamama probably will not. Oh, yeah, he will. So he bought back to sort of try to stop the situation that was developing there. And he does have the track on Chaos Knight, which is interesting. Chaos Knight has his armlet active because it's draining his health. Oh no, the track was dissipated. So Manta Style will dispel debuffs on you, which is what Chaos Knight did there. He took the track off himself with the Manta Style in order to make it so that Bounty Hunter can't walk faster. But still gets the kill. So there's that pro-level poise, right? The composure of, okay, he dropped the track. I can no longer see him. Track lets you see someone no matter where they go. I no longer get a movement speed boost, but I know he's in this area. He just popped his Mana Style here, so he's got to be somewhere in here. I can sort of stalk in here, and I know he's low health. I know he's got the armlet active, which is draining his health and taking it, down to a minimum of 1 HP. As long as I can sort of stalk around here and find him as he finally decides he can get out, I can pick him off. That's exactly what he did. Great play from Wagamama. He hasn't had the greatest game he's ever had, but, that was about a draw. And for Pulse at this point to be getting draws in teamfights is actually really, really favorable for them, because it advances the game state to a point at which they're able to tip the scales. So it advances the game state towards Tiny finally getting big enough to make a difference. Now, right now he's sort of minding the shop here. He's got he's trying to kill the super creeps that are coming down this lane. Like I said, the creeps are buffed, so Tiny has to exert a little more effort to kill them. And actually, the creeps that come out when you kill Raxes are worth less gold than the normal creeps. So farming down the middle lane for Pulse for the rest of the game will be vastly less lucrative than it would be earlier. And that's one of the major reasons why capturing Raxes sort of snowballs you into a winning position in Dota. It's because you can deny farm in that lane for the rest of the game. In League of Legends, Raxes, the equivalent of Raxes inhibitors, will respawn after a while. Queen of Pain is just going to get taken apart here. So again, Kurokai gets in, he lifts, you have the Leshrac stun, you have the incredible damage that a Queen of Pain can put out. She's got even more damage now than the last time we talked about it. Her net worth is up to 15k. Chaos Knight's worth is up to 16.5k. They have a ton of items. Queen of Pain actually, right now, is pretty close to the ideal Queen of Pain build that you want. He's got, so Pos has got Desolator, which reduces the armor of your target. So that, essentially, in a nutshell, increases the burstiness of your damage. And he's got Chrysalis, which gives you a 20% chance to do a 200% strike, essentially. So that gives you crit. So, burst, burst, burst. That's the name of the game with Queen of Pain. Tons of base damage, tons of burst. Tiny's in danger. He doesn't have his Aghanims. He's going to get taken down. You can see the Manta and the Chaos Knight ultimate zoned Tiny there. He could not move. This is an extremely bad situation for them. Tiny's going to get shackled to Jakiro. Both of them will die here. At the very least, Jakiro. Both of them are dead. Pulse is going to... Mini is going to stun. He's going to taunt, but he's the only one alive. He can't actually do anything with that taunt. And this is going to be essentially a game right here. All of Zero are alive. They're able to leverage... This is sort of, almost the tailing part of when they could expect to be completely dominant in this game. But they were so far ahead, they had so much value. They had the best items in the game for these heroes. The best items for Chaos Knight are Armlet, Drums, Manta, BKB. They're just the best. The best items for Queen of Pain are, she wants crit, she wants damage, she wants armor reduction, she wants blink, and a BKB ideally. They're going to get the third set of Raxes here. They're going to convert to Mega Creeps. Mega Creeps are about twice or more as powerful as Super Creeps. It is essentially impossible to counteract them. And now you see the GGs coming out. Typically teams will say this, to avoid having to wait for breaking down these towers. Pulse is extremely wise to GG here. They have no chance of coming back from losing all their Raxes. Their last opportunity there was to somehow win. Smoggling says GG Crit Master. So that's the Templar Assassin being able to just take him apart in the fight here. There's a good... It's interesting. The fact that he highlights that is relevant. The fact that Queen of Pain was essentially a non-factor for this push across here was a big... So now we're just getting to a little bit of silly season here. But the fact that Queen of Pain was taken out right there was extremely significant for ensuring a sort of a difficult-to-stop push down here. And it made Pulse have to play a little more recklessly to play defense here, which allowed the Tiny to get zoned out by the Chaos Knight and get completely surrounded, and made Mini take a much worse taunt than he might otherwise have. It ensured that the Jakiro Macro Pyre was placed in an awkward position. And overall, it sort of ensured that that team fight would go Zero's way. They were already favored. They were favored to win that team fight. But that took it from favored to extremely dominant. So, what can we learn from this game, essentially? Sometimes you can say that teams got outdrafted. Essentially, they lost a game in the draft phase by having just worse picks and bans than the opposing team did. And I wouldn't go as far as to name this that, but you can definitely see in Zero in this game a team that came in knowing what they wanted to do, having a game plan, and executing that. Even as early as the pick stage, people like us can sort of look at it and say, oh, they want to set up with the Chaos Knight stun, they want to set up with the Rubik stun, they want to create a mid-game dominance with these CC-heavy heroes. But a team like Pulse knows that. They know that that is what Zero are going to do, and they're going to do their best to counteract that. In this game, they weren't able to. You can see where their thinking went if you sort of analyze what the heroes do. They think, okay, Queen of Pain is going to be a fine matchup mid against, TA. It's fine. It's not great, but in a one-on-one situation, if you have to fight TA, which you essentially do, you can do it with the Queen of Pain, no problem. We'll get farm on the Tiny. The Tiny is going to counteract them with tons of burst damage, even if he goes full carry. And in the long game, we'll outmuscle them with him. We've got this Jakiro Axe combo that we want to try out. Axe will let us get ahead on levels early, because he'll be in the jungle sort of getting levels. And we'll sort of be able to advance the position to the late game that we want to play in faster by getting more levels than the opposing team. So that was their logic there, essentially. And then, in team fights, we can sort of... We feel okay about standing up to Zero's teamfight potential with this combo that we have, where we taunt with Axe, we plant the Jakiro stun, we use the Tiny stun. Those things combined keep them all in a fairly tight area. We can use the Jakiro Macro Power to deal a ton of damage, and we can layer onto that with our additional sources of burst damage with Queen of Pain and Bounty Hunter to pick off their vulnerable heroes. I mean, all that's fine in theory. They only got it to work once. And the reason is that this incredibly inventive play from Korakai with the support middle Rubik, a role that you just don't really see it that often. You certainly see it, and Puppy, who's the captain of maybe the best Western team in Dota, Na'Vi, does that mid support role, I think, more commonly than a lot of other support players that I see. But Korakai was brilliant. If you want to look at who sort of was the key to tipping the scales of this game, you got to start with Korakai, because his mobility by stealing Queen of Pain's Blink and his just ability to roam and sort of make the game unpredictable for Pulse, I think really was just extremely excellent for making sure that Black and Pos were able to run out of the gate, get their 200 plus last hits in a 40-minute game, the 550 plus gold per minute, and if Pulse's choices of hero picks and lanes were designed to bring the point at which Pulse would tip the scales forward in time, Zero's way of laning and the sort of non-traditional way that they approach that let them move the mid-game, in which they would always sort of have an advantage with their crowd control combos, let them move that forward. So that window got earlier and it got wider because of the dominance that they were able to exert. So, very interesting game. There wasn't really any point at which it looked like Pulse were going to win, but it's interesting to look at why. And we can sort of do a post-mortem on the Axe as well. I keep going back to the Axe because it's a very, very non-traditional pick. So, what does this game tell us about Axe? What I think it says is that you can't use Berserker's Call's crowd control to diffuse the harder crowd control that another team has. So Pulse were maybe thinking, we'll get the blink on the Axe, and you can see they got a blink and they got a Shiva's Guard, which is sort of an AoE slow that you can apply after you've linked into a team. Their thinking was, the Axe counteracts the stuns of the other team because he can counter-initiate by getting in, taunting them, and we can kill them before they can land their stuns. But it's important to note that Berserker's Call is just not quite as good of a CC as something that actually does a stun, like Leshrax's stun. And it has similar setup time because you have to blink in, because it's an AoE. Whereas Leshrac, okay, it takes time for him to set it up in terms of casting it, but it can go where he's not standing, right? So really, Pulse were unable to get the counter initiation to disrupt the CC of Zero. But what does this say for Axe? You can't rely upon him as your primary CC'er. On this team, he and Jakiro were essentially designed to provide the initiation. Jakiro landed some great ice paths. I don't think he looks like he did extremely badly in this game. He's level 12. Everybody else is sort of level 16 or higher. He's 1, 7, and 13. He has almost no items. But that's sort of a lot of a support on a team that isn't getting a ton of gold. You know, if Pulse had tipped it the other way, if Wagamama had been getting all these kills all over the place with track gold and Jakiro was setting him up with stuns, we'd be looking at a Jakiro who was not in any way under level. I think Jakiro did about as well as you could expect. And the issue was that they sort of, weren't able to do that counter initiation that they were hoping for. So, certainly Axe hasn't been giving a glowing recommendation by the performance in this game, although many certainly didn't play poorly. These are all great players, obviously. But I think it could slot into a composition that maybe relied upon someone else for its primary CC, and then used Axe as a sort of follow-up, keep him in place, set up those big combos character. And there's certainly something to be said for a lot of Axe's abilities in the context of a Templar Assassin. Templar Assassin is one of the strongest heroes in the current metagame. She's very, very, very frequently picked or banned. When she's picked first or damn near it. She's just such a strong mid. She generates a ton of mid-game advantage. The game currently meta is focused around getting that mid-game sort of advantage. And consequently, and getting a lot of ganks and kills in the mid game, and so Templar Assassin's very strong. Now, Axe has certain things that make him attractive as a counter to Templar Assassin. Her refraction blocks instances of damage, but his damage over time W ability, Battle Hunger, can actually dissipate those charges. And let's say that the annoying things with Templar Assassin is, okay, she can pop BKB, she's immune to magic damage, and she can pop her refraction when she's low health. And okay, now she's low health, but she can absorb thousands of damage via her damage absorption instances. However, Axe's ultimate Culling Blade will go through BKB, and it'll go through refraction. So now your Templar Assassin is in a much more dangerous shape. Now, if she's at 30% health, you want to get the hell out of there. You don't want to stay in and just brutalize the opposing team. You want to get the hell out before Axe culls you to death. Didn't happen in this game, but you can see what they were thinking. Let's go to Game 2 in just a second. I'm going to take a quick pause